Alhamdulillah wassalatu wassalam ala rasulillah wa ala alihi wa ashabihi ajma'een. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, dear brothers and sisters. In this session we will discuss the last of the remaining attributes without opposites. We are about to close our discussion on Sifat al-Dhatiyah, or the intrinsic attributes, and inshallah very soon we will embark upon the next leg of our journey, which is related to understanding the rules of recitation and how the pronunciation of letters gets affected by other letters and external conditions. So we have covered a lot of theory related to makharij and sifat of letters, and we will soon be covering some more theory when we start studying the rules of recitation. No doubt, all this theory needs to be understood in order to recite the Qur'an correctly. But as mentioned earlier, just understanding the theory is for sure not sufficient. We need much more diligence in practicing the recitation of the Qur'an with a proficient teacher. So you need to be able to apply the theory around makharij, sifat and rules in your own recitation, and hence there is no escape from attending the live classes and reciting the Quran in front of a proficient teacher who will be able to identify and correct your mistakes if any. In the previous two sessions we have covered 4 out of the 8 attributes without opposites: qalqalah, leen, safir and inhiraaf. The letters that exhibit these attributes are much more than those that exhibit the last 4 attributes that we will be covering today. So At-Takreer, At-Tafashshee, Istitaalah and Ghunnah, these attributes have just 1 or maximum 2 letters that exhibit them. So we had to dedicate an entire session for qalqalah because there were 5 letters and there were many subtopics related to qalqalah. In the session on leen, safir and inhiraaf, we had to cover 7 letters that exhibited those attributes. But today's session will be relatively small inshallah, since there are just 5 letters that exhibit the attributes that we will cover today. Apart from going over the linguistic and applied definitions for each of the 4 characteristics and discussing the common mistakes that we tend to make, there are some unique points related to some of these characteristics that we will highlight during this session, such as the relationship between tikrar, inhiraaf and bayniyah, the relationship between the Istitaalah of Daad and Rakhaawah of Daad, as well as understanding the difference between Ghunnah as a makhraj and Ghunnah as an attribute. So let's begin by understanding what we mean by tikrar or takreer. Takreer or tikrar literally means to repeat or to reiterate. In the science of tajweed, the attribute of takreer is associated to only 1 letter, that is the letter ra. It refers to the hidden or slight trembling of the tip of the tongue due to the narrowness of its makhraj. It is important to understand what we mean by the trembling of the tongue, since we find many students make a mistake in reciting the ra either due to exaggerating this trembling or completely reducing its effect. The first thing to understand is that tikrar is a direct result of inhiraaf. We saw in the previous session that while reciting the letter ra, the flow of sound is not blocked at the middle but passes through the small gap at the tip of the tongue by deviating inwards from the 2 sides of the tongue, and this deviation is called inhiraaf. Now as the sound passes through this narrow gap at the tip of the tongue, there is a slight quivering or shaking of the tip, and this quivering or trembling is referred to as tikrar. Note that we learnt earlier that ra is a letter of bayniyah, so the sound continues to run from this small gap and causes the tongue to tremble, but it does not flow as easily as the other letters of Rakhaawah, nor does it stop completely like the letters of shiddah. Now this is how the inhiraaf, bayniyah and tikrar of ra are attributes that are all related to each other. There is a cause and effect relationship between them, and it is only with the correct application of these 3 attributes that the sound of ra will be articulated correctly. Now there are some students who recite the ra in such a way that the tongue is hardly touching the roof of the mouth and the sound appears to come easily from the mouth, since no gap is created as such. So the tongue is left kind of hanging and the sides of the tips do not even touch the roof of the mouth. It is common for the people from the West to recite the letter R in such a way, the rolling of the R. So they will recite it as Ar-Rahman, Ar-Rahman. So in this case, since there is no inhiraaf, even the tikrar does not come out correctly. Another common mistake is to make the gap so small by touching the complete tip of the tongue to the roof of the mouth and causing the gap to be closed off completely. Now when the tip of the tongue comes down, then the sound of ra comes out. And again when the tip of the tongue comes back to its position, the sound is blocked. And this kind of flapping continues until you get the impression of multiple ra's due to multiple vibrations. Something like ar. Ar-Rahman. You see? So we need to take care that we do not reduce the tikrar to the level of being almost non-existent, nor do we exaggerate it and cause multiple vibrations, giving the impression of multiple ra's. So there is a very slight quivering in the correct articulation of ra due to the narrowness of the gap between the makhraj points, and this needs to be very moderate. Ar-Rahman. Moving on to the next attribute called Tafashshee. Tafashshee literally means to spread or to disseminate. In the science of Tajweed, the attribute of Tafashshee is exhibited by a single letter, the letter Sheen, and it refers to the spreading or dispersal of the sound of Sheen after it emanates from its makhraj point and collides with the inner surfaces of the top and bottom teeth. When we recite the letter Sheen, we find that the sound of Sheen emanates from the middle part of the tongue, and then from there it spreads or flows in the direction of the front part of the mouth. Now on reaching the front part, the sound separates into three parts. The part which collides with the inner surface of the upper teeth, the part which collides with the inner surface of the lower teeth, and the part which easily moves out of the mouth. Now these two portions of the sound which collide with the inner surfaces of the upper and lower teeth, these are returned back into the mouth and they cause the sound to spread within the mouth. This spreading is what the scholars termed as Tafashshee. Now just as Safir added strength to the sounds of the letters Seen, Sad and Za, Tafashshee also gives the letter Sheen a unique sound and adds a kind of strength to the sound. We find some students exaggerating the movement of the lips and circling them like the circling of the waw while reciting the Sheen. Ash. This is a clear mistake, my friends. Sheen is a lisani letter and hence should not involve any circling of the lips. Moving now to the attribute of Istitaalah, we have only one letter in the Arabic language, the letter Daad, which exhibits the attribute of Istitaalah. Literally, Istitaalah means elongation or lengthening. In the science of Tajweed, it basically refers to the lengthening of the makhraj of Daad. So it refers to the pushing forward from the back of the mouth to the front due to the compression of sound on the tongue after it strikes the articulation point. We have learnt earlier that the letter Daad is articulated when the 2/3 posterior portion of the edge of the tongue strikes what lies adjacent to it from the inside of the upper molars. The entire outer edge of the tongue forms a kind of seal, not leaving any chance for the sound or breath to pass through it. So because of this seal that is created between the side edge of the tongue and the gums of the molars or premolars, the sound gets compressed. There is no gap between the makhraj points for the sound to release, and due to this pressure that has developed at the back of the tongue gets slightly pushed towards the front until the front edge touches the gum line of the top two front teeth. As in, وَلَضَّالِّينَ. So the area from where the sound of Daad emanates is indicated by this purple portion here, where the tongue comes into contact with the roots of the teeth and also applies pressure to it. And after the tongue has moved forward, the front edge of the tongue touches the roots of the front teeth without applying pressure, and that area is indicated by this yellow portion here. So there is some running of the sound, as in Ad. So Rakhaawah is the running of the sound, while Istitaalah is the lengthening of the makhraj. Now in case of Daad, we can say that the Istitaalah of Daad, or the lengthening of the makhraj, also gives rise to the running of the sound, or the Rakhaawah in Daad. So the sound continues to flow while the tongue moves forward from the back towards the front. You see? So one must not confuse Rakhaawah with Istitaalah. Rakhaawah is the running of the sound as in ash, as, but the Istitaalah is a unique attribute of Daad, and we don't find this lengthening of makhraj in any other Arabic letter. For sure, the recitation of Daad is not easy and requires a lot of practice. It is one of the more difficult letters of the Arabic language. Now, just like the other characteristics, the characteristic of Istitaalah exists in mutaharrik as well as in sakin states. So in case of the mutaharrik Daad, the lengthening of the tongue will be much faster, yet it does exist. For example, ضَلَّ, ضِيزَ. However, in case of the sakin Daad, the lengthening is more prominent as in أَضْ وَلَضَّالِّينَ. The most common mistake with respect to the recitation of Daad that we see students make, especially those from the Indian subcontinent, is to recite the Daad as the letter Dha, the front edge of the tongue touching the bottom edge of the top incisors. So they will recite it as غَيْرِ الْمَغْضُوبِ عَلَيْهِمْ وَلَا الضَّالِّينَ. And they say it is okay to recite it like this, and maybe the reason for this is that in Urdu, both the letters Dha and Daad are recited as Dha. My dear friends, how can the recitation of Daad be like Dha? These are two separate letters of the Arabic language having completely different makharij and many different sifat as well. غَيْرِ الْمَغْضُوبِ عَلَيْهِمْ وَلَا الضَّالِّينَ. It is incorrect to say that both the letters have the same articulation. Even if it may be the case in Urdu, it is not correct to impose the same understanding on the Arabic language. May Allah guide us all to the correct recitation of His kalam. Ameen Ya Rabbal Alameen. The other common mistake is to recite the Daad like a heavy dal, that is from the front tip of the tongue instead of the side edges. غَيْرِ الْمَغْضُوبِ عَلَيْهِمْ وَلَا الضَّالِّينَ. Again, this is not correct. Finally, it is important to understand that the Daad is not recited with qalqalah. So we don't say فَضْرِبْ لَهُمْ. No. فَضْرِبْ لَهُمْ. So no qalqalah, but instead you have Rakhaawah and Istitaalah. We now move on to the last and final characteristic without opposites, the Ghunnah. Linguistically, Ghunnah means to nasalize or speak through the nose. As for the applied definition in Tajweed, Ghunnah is studied from two perspectives. It is first studied from the perspective of being a makhraj or an articulation point. We have already learnt earlier that the letters Meem and Noon cannot be pronounced correctly without the Ghunnah. So nasalization is the component which actually completes the makhraj of Meem and Noon, irrespective of whether the Noon or Meem is sakin or mutaharrik. Ma, na, an. From the sifah perspective, the Ghunnah is studied as being a component of Meem or Noon that can extend or shorten based on rules of Tajweed or external conditions. Inshallah, it is the rules like Izhar, Ikhfa, Idgham, Iqlab, which we are soon going to deep dive into as part of our next series of sessions. For now, let's try to have a brief glimpse with the help of few examples. On the left, you see how we learnt earlier that Ghunnah, which is the nasalization sound that emerges from the nasal passage, completes the articulation of Noon and Meem. So from this angle, it is a makhraj in the sense that the sound from the nasal passage accompanies the sound of Noon and Meem while they are articulated from their primary makhraj points, the tongue in case of Noon and the lips in case of Meem. On the right, we have listed few examples where the length of the Ghunnah in Meem and Noon varies depending on rules or conditions, and from this angle, it is a characteristic or a sifah or an attribute. So you see here in the first two examples, the letter and hence the Ghunnah completely drops, and this is due to idgham. Ar-ra'ahu, la'illam. The noon sakin of this tanween is in izhar and hence it will be a regular ghunnah without any extension. Khuluqin azeemin. In the same way, this meme sakin is in the state of izhar and hence regular ghunnah. Alam tara. The noon sakin here is in the state of ikhfa and hence it will be an extended ghunnah. Tanzilun. Now the ghunnah of this meme sakin will be extended due to iqlab. Tarmihim bihijaratin. The ghunnah of this mushaddad meme will also be extended and will be recited as falamma. Inshallah, we will be covering the levels of ghunnah in each of these cases in great detail very soon. Dear brothers and sisters, Alhamdulillah, with this session we have covered all the sifat al-dhatiyah, the attributes with and without opposites. Many students do find this topic to be very difficult and confusing. We have attempted to present this topic in a simplified manner, taking much assistance from our teachers at KIU, Knowledge International University, and the works of Sheikh Ayman Suwaid. Please take benefit of the links provided here and especially visit the points identified below pertaining to the correct recitation of letters and the points where he demonstrates the mistakes in reciting these letters. So till now we took each attribute one at a time and identified its letters and ways of applying the attributes to those letters. Inshallah, in the next session we will summarize all the letters of the Arabic language along with the sifat al-dhatiyah that they exhibit. This is your brother Shadab signing off until we meet again. Subhanallah wa bihamdihi, subhanakallahumma wa bihamdik, ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruk wa atubu ilayk. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.